that rearranged and redefined popular culture. Rock and roll has always been about exposing us to the forbidden and testing our limits in the process. But these days, it's almost impossible for musicians to shock us. As rock fans, we've seen almost everything, on stage and off. In this edition of Rock Story, 4 extreme rock and roll moments that took popular culture on a thrill ride. If Marilyn Manson is considered shocking today, imagine what it was like when the band Alice Cooper first took the stage. It was the late 60s, a time when shoulder-length hair and bell-bottom jeans was about as radical as rock stars got.
It suddenly went from a day of being really fun to, what is this? And I'll be honest, my whole body went numb. It scared me that bad. We were saying, okay, let's see how far we can take this.
Back in 1969, for all the world knew, Alice Cooper could have been the girl next door.
Think about walking into a town with 5 guys with hair down to their knees wearing dresses named Alice.
Shep Gordon was the manager of the band Alice Cooper.
Nobody likes me. Couldn't have been less liked.
We made the hippies mad. We made the tough guys mad. We made the gays mad.
Vincent Furnier was Alice Cooper's 21-year-old lead singer.
We made everybody mad and went, what are you going to do about it? Here we are.
At first, Alice Cooper could only get small gigs, but all that changed when Shep got the band an opening slot for the Doors and John Lennon at a festival in Toronto.
We wanted to do something big, so we stole 3 pillows from the Holiday Inn, and we got somebody's CO2 cartridge that would blow the thing up. At the end of the show, it was like just things were falling, and the noise was just this massive white noise. And in the middle of all this white feathers, here comes this white chicken flying up. Now, first of all, who brought a chicken to the concert?
Alice played with it a little bit and then flew it out to the audience thinking that it could fly.
You know, I'm from Detroit. I've never been on a farm. It had feathers, it had wings, it's going to fly. It didn't fly as much as it plummeted into the audience, and they tore it to pieces and then threw the parts back up.
That was probably the first time that Alice really got an incredible reaction rather than a negative reaction.
And I looked to the left side of the stage, and there's John Lennon. I looked to the right, and there's Jim Morrison, and they're all going, go! You know, and I went, wow, this is a moment. This is one of those moments in history.
It was a gigantic standing ovation.
It was sort of like getting your hand caught in the cookie jar. I'd pick up the pieces, snap, 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 snap.
The next day, the chicken incident made national news. The rumors were rife.
Press said that he ate a chicken's head, I think, and it got a lot of press. And we truly felt all press was good press.
Next thing I know, Frank Zappa's calling me and saying, did you kill a chicken on stage? No, I'd never do that. Well, don't tell anybody, it's the greatest story.
We never denied it.
They needed a new young villain, and here he was.
I think that was the moment the light bulb went on for all of us.
Not long after, the band went to work with producer Bob Ezrin. The result was the album Love It to Death and a hit song.
I'm 18 and I don't know what I want. 18.
That was a big, very big turning point.
They were going to get the music, but they were going to get not just that much icing on the cake, they were going to get that much icing.
By 1971, the band had a national tour under its belt and a sizable following. Vincent Furnier was now the character Alice Cooper. And when the band hit the road for its new Killer album, the newly souped-up stage show slayed fans.
We sold out like every single big hall in the country now. Whereas as they used to leave by the hordes, they're now coming to see it. You know, it just might have to do with the fact that there is a certain air of violence in the air right now.
I'd been to one arena show. That was Kenny Rogers in the first edition, which did not prepare me for this.
On December 19th, 1971, Paul Kilgore went to Detroit's Cobo Hall to see Alice Cooper's Killer show. He was 19 years old.
The crowd was one of the freakiest crowds, looking back, I have ever seen. It just all kind of lended a little bit to, ooh, this is the dark side.
2 songs into the set, Alice disappeared for a moment. And when he returned, he wasn't alone.
There was a big roar instantly from the crowd.
Everybody has some strong reaction to a snake, and it's usually, ooh.
If you have the snake on stage, maybe it's 5 feet long. By the time it gets to school the next day, the snake was 20 feet long, and it tried to kill Alice.
Maybe that was my first hint that maybe this wasn't a totally normal night. About 3/4 of the way through the night, they come out, and he had something in his hand, and it was a doll.
Dolls? I hated dolls.
He just kind of took an arm and ripped it off the doll.
I hated my sister's dolls.
He bit the other arm off.
I hated the New York dolls.
And then he dropped down to his knees with an axe and just started chopping up.
I hated every kind of dolls.
You could see his eyes.
Violence of the chopping.
It looked like the eyes of a guy that was pretty twisted and was really enjoying this.
The audiences would just start applauding, screaming.
I'll be honest with you, it scared me to death.
You know, a great reaction is, yeah. A better reaction is,
That crossed the line at that point.
if you can get a whole 10,000 people to all go, at the same time, that's a great reaction.
That's, I believe, when my body went numb and I just went, oh my God.
The audience was hungry for this stuff. We were saying, okay, let's see how far we can take this. Let's hang Alice.
We called the magician, named Amazing Randy, and we said, listen, we need to kill an entertainer on stage. What would be effective in a big arena? How would people see it?
What happened was they had a guy reading from the Bible, giving the last rites, and there were guys carrying torches. It was making a red cloud. They walked him up the steps, and then you see a guy put a noose around his neck, and then the floor drops,
I went,
and he just hangs.
believe me, I was scared to death.
At first it was kind of quiet.
The device that kept me from really hanging only kept me from hanging there that much to make it look real.
Then all kinds of people started cheering. I was still kind of quiet at the time. I was just kind of taking it all in because I'd never seen anything like this before.
It looked real.
Rod Gilkison, a.k.a. the Rock Evangelist, was a self-proclaimed crusader against Alice Cooper.
It was a twisted type of music. It was almost inviting kids to put a noose around their neck and follow their guru.
We still got a long way to go.
I didn't know if it was his gimmick or what was going on, and it just scared me.
Where to go?
In 1972, Gilkison launched a national campaign to stop Alice.
The bulk of any audience is smart enough to know what they're looking at. It's those few who have the wiring that's a little bit shorted out that concerns me.
I mean, you go to see a James Bond movie, it's got 35 people getting shot off buildings and things, but people don't go out and do that.
It didn't make you violent. You know, it's like you keep building up, and then when the show's over, it's like, you finally relax and you talk about it afterward.
I was trying to say look, you're setting precedent here. You're allowing this to become a monster, and you're going to have to pay for it later.
We were lucky. Nobody hung themselves because of Alice, but certainly we were worried about it all the time.
While Gilkison had some followers, his message was eventually muffled by the volume of Alice Cooper's popularity.
Alice Cooper!
It became just myself and my manager fighting the battle, and eventually it just kind of went away to nothingness.
By the next tour, the audience knew what to expect from Alice Cooper. And while some of the shock had worn off, the trail that he blazed would be traveled by many again and again.
We didn't realize it was changing everything till years later.
Alice was shock rock.
I was the great other. I was the great white hope. The great destruction of wimpy rock. There was Alice. We can depend on Alice to go out there, and we can depend on the parents hating it.
It's probably one of the strongest emotional feelings I've ever had in my life, and that took something to do it.
I guess at the time it was shocking.
I love you, really, I love you.
While the Rock Evangelist tried to rally people against Alice, One Protestant minister remained a staunch supporter, Alice's father, Mick Fernier.